You need to understand, the moment you keep overgiving in a connection that is already unbalanced, you are not deepening love. You are slowly erasing yourself. And I know that's hard to hear because your intention was never to lose yourself. Your intention was to love fully, to show up, to be consistent, to be someone who doesn't give up easily. But somewhere along the way, your effort stopped being mutual and started becoming one-sided. And instead of pausing and asking why, you gave more, you tried harder, you stretched yourself further, believing that if you could just be patient enough, understanding enough, loving enough, things would finally settle into something real. But what you didn't see in that moment was how your giving was becoming expected, how your kindness was becoming predictable, how your presence was becoming something they didn't have to earn anymore, because every time they stepped back, you stepped forward. Every time they went quiet, you filled the silence. Every time they gave you less, you convinced yourself to give more, and not because you were weak, but because you were hopeful, because you believed love was about not giving up, because you thought loyalty meant staying even when it hurt. And that's where the shift begins, not in them, but in you. When you start to realize that love is not supposed to feel like constant effort from one side. It's not supposed to feel like you are holding everything together while they simply exist within it. It's not supposed to feel like you are earning moments of affection by tolerating long periods of confusion, and yet you stayed, telling yourself that maybe they're just scared, maybe they just need time. Maybe if you don't pressure them, they will come closer on their own. You need to understand, when you overgive, you unintentionally remove the need for the other person to rise, because they already have access to your energy without having to match it. They already have your attention without having to invest in it. They already have your care without having to protect it. And for someone who is avoidant, this becomes a comfortable place, not because they are trying to hurt you, but because they are used to distance. They are used to emotional space. And when you keep bridging that gap for them, they never feel the weight of what they are not giving. And I know a part of you believed that your love would inspire them, that your consistency would show them what real connection looks like, that your patience would make them feel safe enough to open up. But the truth is, people don't grow because of what you tolerate. They grow because of what they are required to meet. And when there are no boundaries, there is no requirement. When there is no requirement, there is no urgency. And when there is no urgency, nothing changes. So you kept giving, thinking you were building something, but in reality, you were maintaining something that was never being equally built. You were carrying it, protecting it, nurturing it, while they were simply experiencing it. And that imbalance slowly started to drain you. Not all at once, but in quiet ways. In the way you started overthinking small things. In the way you checked your phone more often. In the way your mood depended on their response. In the way you started questioning your own worth without even realizing it. And the hardest part is, you didn't even notice when your giving stopped feeling like love and started feeling like survival, when your effort stopped feeling natural and started feeling necessary, when your presence stopped being something you offered and started being something you felt you had to maintain just to keep them from drifting away. And that is not where love is supposed to live. You need to understand, reclaiming your emotional value is not about becoming cold. It's not about shutting down. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about recognizing that your energy is valuable, that your time is valuable, that your presence is not something that should be given endlessly without consideration. It's about realizing that the right person will not require you to exhaust yourself just to feel secure. And when you begin to pull back, not out of anger, not out of ego, but out of clarity, it will feel uncomfortable because you are breaking a pattern that your heart got used to. You are stepping out of a role that became familiar, the role of the one who gives more, the one who tries harder, the one who stays longer, and your mind will try to convince you to go back. It will tell you that maybe you're being too much, maybe you're being too distant now, maybe you should just send that message, maybe you should just check in one more time. But you need to understand, that urge is not love. It is habit. It is the emotional muscle memory of always being the one who closes the gap. And if you give into it, nothing changes. The same pattern continues. The same imbalance remains. The same quiet pain returns, just dressed in a slightly different moment. Because the real shift happens when you hold your energy, when you allow space to exist, when you stop rushing in to fix what they are not stepping up to maintain. And in that space, something important is revealed. Either they begin to notice your absence and step forward with real intention, or they remain where they are. and you finally see the truth without the filter of your effort covering it. And that truth, as painful as it may be, is also freeing, because it shows you that it was never about you not giving enough. It was about them not meeting you where you were, and no amount of overgiving can fix that. No amount of patience can replace their willingness. No amount of love can substitute for their effort. So when you choose to stop overgiving, you are not losing love, you are redefining it. You are saying that love must be mutual, that connection must be supported from both sides, that your heart deserves to be met, not managed, not tolerated, not kept at a distance while you do all the work to keep it alive. And in that moment, even if it feels quiet, even if it feels uncertain, even if it feels like you are stepping into the unknown, you are actually stepping back into yourself, into your worth, into a version of you that no longer believes love has to be earned through exhaustion, but received through alignment, through consistency, through someone who chooses you without needing to be convinced. You need to understand, the moment you stop chasing someone is not the moment you stop caring. It is the moment you finally start respecting yourself. And that shift, as simple as it sounds, is one of the hardest things you will ever do, because chasing doesn't always look desperate from the outside. Sometimes it looks like love, it looks like effort, it looks like loyalty, it looks like being the one who doesn't give up. But deep down, chasing often comes from a place of fear, fear of losing them, fear of being forgotten, fear that if you don't hold the connection together, it will fall apart completely. And so you keep moving toward them. Even when they step back, you keep reaching out. Even when they go quiet, you keep trying to understand, explain, fix, soften, hoping that if you just approach it the right way, they will finally meet you in the middle. But what you don't realize is that every time you chase, you are teaching them something without saying a word. You are teaching them that distance does not cost them anything. You are teaching them that your presence is guaranteed, no matter how inconsistent they are. You need to understand, chasing creates an imbalance that slowly changes how they see you, not because you are not valuable, but because you are always available. And when something is always available, it stops being appreciated in the way it deserves. It becomes expected. It becomes something they assume will always be there. And that assumption removes the urgency for them to show up, to invest, to pursue. And I know that's painful to accept because your heart tells you that if you love someone, you show up for them, you don't play games, you don't hold back, you don't act distant just to get a reaction. And you're right, real love is not about games, but what you have been doing is not love in its pure form anymore. It has become pursuit without reciprocity, effort without balance, giving without being met. And that is where it starts to hurt you. There comes a moment where you feel it, not as a dramatic realization, but as a quiet exhaustion. A moment where you ask yourself why it always feels like you are the one trying harder, why it feels like you are the one maintaining the connection, why it feels like if you stopped, everything would disappear. And that question, that uncomfortable, honest question, is where your transformation begins. Because when you stop chasing, you are not creating distance to punish them. You are creating space to see clearly. You are stepping back so that the truth can finally reveal itself without your effort covering it. Because when you are always the one moving forward, you never really know if they would ever move toward you on their own. You need to understand, calm self-respect is not loud, it does not announce itself, it does not demand attention, it simply changes how you show up, it changes what you tolerate, it changes how quickly you respond, how much you invest, how much you explain, and most importantly, it changes what you accept as enough. And at first, it will feel unnatural because you are used to filling the silence. You are used to closing the gap. You are used to making sure things don't fall apart. So when you step back, your mind will panic. It will tell you that you are losing them. It will tell you to send the message, to check in, to fix the distance, because that is what you have always done. But you need to understand that urge is not a sign that you should go back. It is a sign that you are breaking a pattern, because chasing gives you a sense of control. It makes you feel like you are doing something, like you are actively trying to save the connection. But calm self-respect asks you to do something much harder. It asks you to be still, to trust that if someone wants to be in your life, they will step forward without being pulled. It asks you to believe that your worth is not dependent on how much effort you put in, but on how you allow yourself to be treated. And when you reach that place, something powerful happens. Your energy changes, not in a way that is forced, but in a way that is felt. You stop appearing as someone who is chasing love, and you start appearing as someone who is choosing it, and that difference is everything. Because when you are chasing, you are focused on them, on their behavior, on their responses, on their distance. But when you are grounded in self-respect, your focus returns to you, to your peace, to your emotional stability, to your standards. And that shift makes you less reactive, less anxious, less dependent on their actions to feel okay. And this is where the dynamic begins to change, because the person who was used to your pursuit now feels your stillness. They feel the space you have created. They notice that you are no longer filling every silence, that you are no longer trying to hold everything together, and that absence of chasing can feel unfamiliar to them. Not because you are playing a game, but because the pattern they relied on is no longer there. The rhythm of push and pull has been interrupted, and for the first time, they are faced with a choice to either step forward and meet you or to remain where they are and risk losing you. But listen carefully, because this is where your strength is truly tested. When they begin to come closer, when they start to reach out again, when they show small signs of interest, it will feel like everything you wanted is finally happening. And your instinct will be to go back to chasing, to give more again, to make sure you don't lose this moment. You need to understand, if you go back to chasing, you go back to the same cycle. Because real change is not in their temporary interest, it is in your consistent self-respect. It is in your ability to stay grounded even when your emotions want to pull you back into old habits. It is in your decision to only meet them at the level they are willing to consistently show up at. And that is not easy, because it requires patience, not the kind of patience where you wait for them to change, but the kind where you hold your standard without rushing, without forcing, without lowering it just to keep them close. So when you stop chasing, you are not losing control, you are gaining clarity. You are allowing the connection to either rise to meet you or fall away naturally, without you holding it up, without you carrying it alone. And in that space, you will begin to feel something you haven't felt in a long time, peace. Not because everything is perfect, but because you are no longer fighting for something that is not meeting you halfway. You are no longer exhausting yourself trying to prove your worth. You are no longer chasing someone who is unsure about you. You are simply standing in your truth, calm, grounded, and certain, knowing that the right person will not require you to chase them. They will walk toward you, willingly, consistently, and with the same energy you have been giving all along. You need to understand, creating absence is not about disappearing to make someone panic. It is not about silence used as a weapon. It is not about trying to manipulate emotions so someone suddenly realizes your worth. Real absence is something much deeper than that. It is the natural result of clarity. It is what happens when you finally stop overextending yourself in a place where you are not being met. And instead of forcing connection, you allow space to exist without trying to control the outcome. For a long time, your presence was constant, not just physically, but emotionally. You were always there, always available, always ready to respond, always willing to explain, always willing to fix things when they felt off. And in that consistency, you believed you were building something strong, something stable, something that would eventually feel secure, but what you didn't realize was that your constant presence was also making your absence invisible, because you never truly allowed space for them to feel what it is like when you are not there holding everything together. You need to understand, when someone is avoidant, they often rely on distance to feel safe. They step back when things feel too intense. They create space when emotions get too close. And in that pattern, your role became the one who closed the gap, the one who reduced the distance, the one who made sure the connection never fully slipped away. And because of that, they never had to sit in the reality of losing you. They never had to feel the full weight of your absence, because you were always there before it could reach that point. And this is where clarity changes everything, because absence that comes from confusion feels different. It feels heavy, uncertain, filled with longing. It still carries energy that says, I am here, I just don't know what to do. And that kind of absence does not shift the dynamic. It keeps you emotionally attached even when you are physically distant. But absence that comes from clarity, from a grounded understanding that you deserve consistency, that you deserve effort, that you deserve peace, carries a completely different energy. It is calm, it is steady, it is not trying to prove anything, it is not waiting to be noticed. It is simply the result of you no longer participating in a pattern that drains you. And when that kind of absence appears, it is felt in a way that words cannot replace, because your energy is no longer reaching toward them. Your attention is no longer trying to pull them closer. Your presence is no longer available without intention. You need to understand people often do not fully value what is always accessible. Not because they are bad, but because human nature adapts to consistency. It normalizes what is always there. And when you have been constantly available, constantly giving, constantly present, your absence becomes the only thing that can interrupt that normalization. It becomes the moment where they can no longer rely on the pattern they were used to. And for an avoidant, this can feel unsettling because they are used to controlling distance. They are used to stepping back and knowing that you will still be there. They are used to creating space without consequence. But when your absence is real, when it is not filled with hidden effort, when it is not followed by you reaching out again, it removes that sense of control. It forces them to experience something different, something they are not used to. But listen carefully, because this is where many people lose themselves again. They create absence, but they fill it with anxiety. They check their phone constantly. They wait for a message. They hope for a reaction. They measure their silence by whether it is working. And in doing so, they are still emotionally chasing, just in a quieter way. And that is not the absence that creates change. That is just distance filled with attachment. Real absence comes when you are no longer waiting, when you are no longer measuring, when you are no longer hoping that your silence will bring them back. It comes when you are genuinely focused on yourself, your life, your peace, your growth. It comes when your energy is no longer tied to their response. And that is what makes it powerful, because it is not dependent on them at all. You need to understand, absence is not something you perform. It is something you become. It is the natural space that exists when you stop forcing connection, when you stop trying to hold on to something that is not holding you the same way. And in that space, you begin to reconnect with yourself. You begin to feel your own presence again, your own thoughts, your own emotions, without constantly filtering them through someone else's behavior. And something beautiful happens in that process. You begin to feel lighter, not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped carrying. You stopped carrying the responsibility of maintaining something alone. You stopped carrying the weight of their inconsistency. You stopped carrying the pressure of making everything work. And in that release, you start to find a sense of peace that was missing for a long time. And yes, there may be moments where they notice, where they reach out, where they step closer, and it may feel like your absence is what caused it, but you need to understand the goal was never to make them react. The goal was to free yourself from a dynamic that was not giving you what you needed. And if they come back, the question is not whether they missed you. The question is whether they are ready to meet you differently. Because absence alone does not fix anything. It only reveals. It reveals their intentions, their effort, their willingness, and most importantly, it reveals your own standards. It shows you whether you are willing to accept the same pattern again, or whether you are ready to choose something healthier, something more balanced, something that does not require you to disappear just to feel seen. So creating absence is not about losing them. It is about finding yourself. It is about stepping out of a space where you were giving more than you were receiving. It is about allowing the connection to either rise or fall without your constant effort holding it in place. And in that space, you realize something that changes everything, that your presence is valuable, that your energy matters, that your time and attention are not things to be given endlessly without intention, and that the right connection will not require you to create absence just to be appreciated. It will meet you in presence, in consistency, in a way that feels natural, not forced, not uncertain, not one-sided. And that is when you truly understand. Absence was never about them. It was always about you coming back to yourself, fully, honestly, and without compromise.